Good evening and welcome to Nothing But the Truth. I'm your host, Trudy Stern. So many things are happening right now, and they're moving fast. From political flashpoints here at home to developments in places most people weren't watching a year ago Minnesota, Greenland, Iran. Events are unfolding simultaneously, and they're far more connected than they may appear at first glance. This is one of those moments. Headlines alone don't help. We need context, clarity, and someone who understands how domestic policy, foreign policy, and national security intersect, and who isn't afraid to speak plainly about it. And that's why we have just the right person to help us tonight. Joining us is Randy Fine, who represents Florida's 6th Congressional District. Before coming to Congress, he served in the Florida legislature, where he earned the nickname the Hebrew Hammer. He earned that for his unapologetic defense of Israel and the Jewish community. And now in Congress, he continues to wear that identity proudly, literally, as the only member of Congress who wears a kippah, a visible statement of faith, values, and resolve at a time when standing openly as a Jew in public takes real courage. In Washington, Congressman Fine has quickly become a clear and forceful voice on issues ranging from anti-Semitism and national security to American strength on the world stage. Tonight, we're going to cut through the noise and break down what's really happening, why it matters, how these events connect, and what it all means for the United States and our allies. Congressman Fine, welcome to Nothing But the Truth. We are so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. Honored to be here.
So, I just want to start with Greenland. This past week, you introduced a bill on the House floor to annex Greenland. Can you walk us through what is the significance of Greenland and why is that a strategically important country for us?
Sure. So I filed that bill to support the president's agenda, which is to make Greenland part of the United States. And the question is why? Well, there's really two reasons. Number one, Greenland is really all that stands between the United States and the weapons of Russia. They have to fly over Greenland in order to get to America. And as we build out the Golden Dome, it makes sense for us to be responsible for this enormous piece of land that really sits between us and this adversary that we have. Second, Greenland is surrounded by trade routes that are being used by China and Russia. And as these are our adversaries in the world, making sure that the United States has a strong hold over it makes a lot of sense. For 200 years, the United States has enacted the Monroe Doctrine that says we are going to be responsible for what happens in the Western Hemisphere. And the fact of the matter is, Greenland is not part of Europe. It's not geographically part of Europe. It's part of the Western Hemisphere. It's part of North America. And much as Alaska has prospered being part of the United States on our northwestern frontier, I think Greenland would be the same on our northeastern frontier. So my bill helps President Trump as he and Secretary Rubio negotiate that deal with Denmark and the Greenlanders, and I'm very hopeful that they will be successful.
So, how does Denmark feel about all of this?
Well, Denmark's not happy, but you know what? I mean, look, I understand that when you built a big colonial empire over hundreds and thousands of years, giving it up is maybe a hit to your ego. But the fact of the matter is, the last time Greenland was threatened during World War II, it wasn't the Danes that protected it, it was the United States. And it is not a strategic asset to Denmark. It's not particularly well taken care of by Denmark. The poverty rate in Greenland is much higher than it is in Denmark. The suicide rate is an order of magnitude greater than it is in Denmark. And Denmark basically gave up on the place and said that the 50,000 people of Greenland can vote to do whatever they want. So God forbid they say, you know what, we're going to become part of Russia or China. We can't allow that to happen. And so it is important that they become part of the United States. And that's why I'm supporting the president and making that happen.
Well, it sounds like it's really important, but could you explain to us what has Russia and China been doing in that region while Denmark has been asleep at the wheel?
Well, they're trying to establish a foothold in the Western Hemisphere to threaten the United States. Look at what they did in Venezuela, where Russian assets, Chinese assets, Muslim terrorists a long way from the Middle East operating openly in Venezuela to our south. We can't afford to have the same thing happen to our north. And the fact of the matter is, China is interested and willing and wants to basically put assets in Greenland, which would threaten the United States. And we simply can't allow that to happen. But this is also good for Greenlanders. I mean, becoming part of the freest, wealthiest, most powerful country in the world will make Greenland benefit and prosper. So everyone wins if we do this, I guess, except for a few egos in Europe and the Russians and the Chinese.
So it seems like it makes a lot of sense all around, but yet there's so much negativity surrounding this. I don't really understand why that would take place if it seems like it's such a natural positive for the United States and for Greenland.
Well, there's certain people that would oppose. If Donald Trump came up with a cure for cancer, they'd oppose it because they would say, it's going to be bad for mortuaries. I mean, there are people who oppose anything that the president wants to do, and we see that here. And look, anytime you create change, that's going to create some unhappiness, and there's egos involved. Denmark, I guess, is proud that hundreds of years ago they conquered Greenland. And even though they don't really take care of it, I guess it affects their ego at the idea of losing it. But the fact of the matter is, it's not a strategic asset for their nation. It is for ours. And that's why we would like to be in control of it.
So, what does your bill actually propose?
My bill gives the president that legal right to annex Greenland, and it sets up a process where they could become a 51st state if the Congress of the United States agrees.
And do you see that there is much support for this in Congress?
We just filed it. We're seeing, but what I will tell you is this: I think it helps the president's negotiating position because within hours of filing the bill, the ambassadors of Greenland and Denmark were in my office worried about what that would mean. And my statement to them was, look, I support Donald Trump and making America great again and safe again. And I just want to line Congress up behind him, but he's in charge of figuring out how to make this happen, not me.
It seems like it's in the best interest of the United States. And it seems like any congressman who had that on their radar, best interest of the United States, which we hope they all do, would vote for this and support this bill. So
It's clearly in the best interest of the United States. I don't think anybody believes that not to be the case. I think it's just some people don't care about what's in the best interest of the United States. I do.
other presidents have tried to do this in the past.
Yeah, other presidents just talk a lot, but they don't actually do things. President Trump says what he wants to do, and he's trying to reshape the world to make it more friendly to America, to make it more friendly to Western values, and to fight back, whether it's Russian imperialism, Chinese communism, or mainstream Muslim terror. Donald Trump is trying to protect the world from all of these threats.
Well, this has been very interesting, and I wish you the best of luck with this particular bill.
Thank you.
Moving along to Minnesota, could you walk us through what's going on there? It seems
Sure.
like it's really just craziness again, craziness with the fraud, with what's happening. If you could walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, look, this is part of a 50-year strategy by Democrats to change the country by facilitating foreign invasion of both legal and illegal immigrants. We have the highest percentage of foreign-born people living in the United States that we ever have. And so what has happened is tens of millions of illegal immigrants have come into this country unvetted. They do not respect America because if they did, they would not come here illegally. Many of them are criminals. And they have taken root in places like Minnesota. And so President Trump's just trying to go round them up and deport them. It will have incredibly good results on every level, from housing prices to crime to education costs to healthcare costs. But Democrats don't want their voters sent home. And so they are fighting back and fighting to support what is a foreign invasion. Literally, Democrats are calling for civil war. And so Democrats are being violent and trying to stop ICE from implementing duly passed federal immigration law. And at least for me, I'm not going to put up with it. So I believe Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, I think Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, should be arrested and put in jail. I think they're engaged in treason, and I think they should be held accountable for doing that.
Well, that's only uh, one thing that's happening there. The other thing is the incredibly huge fraud that has been taking place by the Somali community.
Yep.
Uh,
By design. By design. Democrats knew it was happening, supported happening, skim a bit off the top for their campaign contributions. We have imported the scum of the earth and they are destroying our country. And we need to round them all up and we need to send them all home without exception.
But what do we do about the fraud that has taken place? I mean,
Put them
this is
in jail,
$9
but end it.
billion.
Now, I have a bill that will solve the fraud. My bill would ban all immigrants, whether illegal or legal, from any form of federal welfare. So we have created these federal welfare programs, and they are robbing us blind, and they're laughing at us as they do it. The notion that over 80% of Somalis are on welfare is disgusting. Every one of them should be rounded up and shipped home.
And what about the $9 billion that went to these daycare centers there where there are no children?
I mean, look, we can put people in jail, and we need to stop these programs. But the fact of the matter is that that money's long gone, sitting with Muslim terrorists in Africa and the Middle East. So we need to stop it. We need to hold those accountable who did it, and we need to send all these people home. But they don't want to stop it. They want to, you have to understand, for the left, hurting America is the goal. They knew the fraud was going on. They know the people are illegal and they support it because it keeps them in power. These are people that hate the United States, think we're a nation that needs to be destroyed, and they are trying to destroy us from within.
So what can be done? Obviously, Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar had to be complicit. Um,
There's no question. The level of fraud is so great. It's inconceivable that they were unaware of it. It reminds me of the Germans in World War II, who would say they had no idea the Holocaust was going on. When they did, they may not have been involved, but they knew it was happening. These people knew exactly what was going on. They were taking campaign contributions from the fraudster. They all need to be held accountable. And so that's why they're engaged in this insurrection. This is a desperate effort to protect themselves from the consequences that are coming, which is impeachment, arrest, imprisonment, deportation, and expulsion.
so are there efforts currently going on to investigate Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar
Absolutely.
for this?
Yes, absolutely.
Will we be hearing about these things soon?
I hope so.
I hope so too, because that is outrageous what has happened and what probably would have continued to happen had President Trump not, been notified or found out about this.
Yeah. And by the way, Minnesota is just the tip of the iceberg. Make no mistake. This is happening in every blue state. It's happening in New York, California, and everywhere else. Giving illegal immigrants and giving immigrants fraudulent welfare, that is the goal. Bankrupting America is the goal. We no longer have two sets of people who want what's best for America. They just differ on how to get there. We have one group of people who loves America and another group who wants to destroy America, and we've got to beat back those people.
So are there investigations also going on in other states like New York?
Absolutely, yes. And then the president has announced a series of actions to cut off welfare for these programs. We need to cut off welfare to blue states that are misusing the programs.
So how quickly do you think we're going to see results on this?
Well, they've already started cutting off the money, and I think President Trump announced an end of all money to sanctuary cities in the next few weeks. We need to have massive, massive welfare reform in this country. Too many people are getting too much free stuff, and it's all borrowed from our kids and grandkids. We need to put an end to it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And just before we move on, Ilhan Omar, from what I had seen, when she entered Congress, she had $30,000 in her bank, and now she has $30 million in her bank. So, is there an investigation into that? That is absolutely outrageous.
There is. She's been referred to the ethics committee. Look, it turns out there's good money in Muslim terror. Ilhan Omar is a disgrace. It's a disgrace she was ever allowed into the country. It's a disgrace that she was allowed to become a naturalized citizen. It's a disgrace that she serves in Congress. She should be expelled. She should be deported, and she should be sent back to her friends in Somalia.
Do you think that's going to happen realistically?
I think it's possible. I mean, look, the brother marriage thing puts her entire citizenship at risk, and I know that's being investigated.
I think this money thing is probably very obvious and very easy to, you follow the money.
If
It's
that
not so
won't get her
hard.
deported, that'll just get her put in jail.
And maybe out of Congress.
Maybe.
So, Iran, you sit on House Foreign Affairs. Tell us what's happening now in Iran. We're watching this in real time, and it seems like we're going to war. We're not going to war. We're taking uh, steps. We're not taking steps. The airspace over there is closed. I know Israel's airspace was closed yesterday. So what's happening?
Well, look, you've got an uprising by the Iranian people against their Muslim terror government. People have to remember that before the Muslim terrorists took over in 1979, Iran was a Western nation with our values and was a great participant in the world. That culture still lies under the mainstream Muslim terrorism that they've suffered under for 50 years. We are trying to support the Iranian people as the Muslim terrorists are trying to put them down. And I think something that people need to note is where are all the free Palestine people? I mean, there were estimates of 12,000 Iranians gunned down by Muslim terrorists. I mean, it's very, very clear that the people who took over our college campuses, who have these street protests in New York City, they don't actually care about anything except destroying Western civilization. There should be massive protests around Europe and the United States by these same people if they really do care about Muslims being killed. Well, no place is killing more Muslims right now than Iran.
So it seems a little bit frightening in that the the regime, Khamenei, is at his weakest moment, it seems. They're showing online the Russian plane ready to fly him right out. It seems like he's taken a lot of money out also, that the regime has uh been siphoning off a ton of money. So it seems like maybe ready to flee. But yet uh the country, our country, is President Trump did not attack at all, didn't do anything so far. And if we don't solve this problem at this moment, when things are really weak for the regime, and the people of Iran very much want change, then it's just going to be more and more of the same. And they keep, the regime is lying. The regime is saying, oh, we're not executing people. We are not doing that. They actually said online yesterday that on Fox, that the foreign minister of Iran said that it was the Mossad that was killing the people in the streets, which obviously is ridiculous. Um,
Blame the Jews.
yes, of course. But yet, nothing, like if we do not seize this moment, our future might be very different in
I
terms
think
of a war on the West.
President Trump is focused on not getting into an intractable war. I mean, he's been very effective on decisive, very strategic, very surgical strikes that lead to a specific result. And I trust his judgment. He has more information than I do about what's going on over there. He's going to make the right decision for the United States and the world. And what people need to know is that a free Iran that joins the Western community would be a transformational situation for the Middle East, for the United States. No government has funded more Muslim terror over the last 50 years than Iran. So getting rid of that and making Persia great again will change all of our lives for the good.
Well, so I'm hearing that maybe we can look forward to that in the future, um, because that would be transformational and that would be incredible. This war against the West, these are not individual conflicts. Venezuela, Greenland, what's happening in our country, Iran. This is all a concerted effort by Russia, China, Iran, in a very organized war against the West. So if we can eliminate Iran and restore that country back to its Western values, that would be ideal.
The
Do,
three biggest strategic threats in the world today are Russian imperialism, Chinese communism, and mainstream Muslim terror. If we take down Iran, that will eliminate largely the Muslim terror situation. We still have the problem of the Qataris, who are major funders of Muslim terror, but Iran is the biggest problem, and to get rid of them, I think, and maybe Qatar would join the light side of the force, if you will, and stop funding Muslim terror if Iran were to fall. So we will see.
do you think that's going to happen?
I think there's a good chance it's going to happen. I mean, it's obviously we need to stand behind the Iranian people, but it seems like we're closer now than we've ever been, and hopefully we will get them over the finish line.
I certainly hope so. It just seemed like today there was a pullback from that strategy, and I really hope that doesn't happen.
Well, I think the president needs to make sure that if and when we launch American military forces, that we know what the outcome will be and it will lead to the change that we want, and that we don't get dragged into some intractable war. And so I'm sure he's dotting his I's and crossing his T's. The President Trump's gotten everything right so far. I don't expect anything to change.
Well, I certainly hope so. Looking at the big picture, um, if Iran is no longer part of this equation, how do you see the future?
Well, I think, the Russian threat will still be there, but that will be largely contained. And I think China as our primary adversary will continue, but we need to continue to focus on them as an adversary, focus on trade policy, do things like we've done in Greenland and Venezuela to not allow them to get onto our hemisphere, and America will win. We're so lucky to have Donald Trump as our president. We were done if he hadn't won, and he has made America great again, strong again, prosperous again, and safe again. And I think that our adversaries have taken notice.
Well, I definitely couldn't agree more, and this show couldn't agree more. We've devoted a lot of our episodes to this. Um, and thank you so much for all of your service. Let's okay, so that has been very illuminating, all of these thoughts about what's happening. But how about you? So you've now been in Congress. This is your second term,
Mhm.
and you've been
No,
doing
it's my first term.
your
I've only been
first
in
term. You're
Congress for
running for
nine
your
months.
second term.
9 months.
Okay. You're doing amazing, amazing work. You're so
Thank you.
outspoken and so you call it like it is, which I think is so refreshing and why so many people really love you.
Thank
But
you.
I'm sure there are lots of people that don't. So have you been threatened? Have you been having had any issues like that? Because I would assume so.
Yeah, we get death threats all the time, but look, I'm not afraid. I'm right, and we need to be willing to stand up to our enemies. We need to not be afraid in the world to go out and do what is right. Because if we don't, we're not going to have an America. We're not going to have a Western civilization. Make no mistake, particularly the Muslim terrorists, they seek a worldwide Islamic caliphate. We cannot allow that to happen. And I'm not going to be afraid to stand up and say what's right.
So you also said, and thank you for that, by the way. Thank you so much. We're very lucky to have you and have your voice and have somebody who's not afraid to speak up and stand up for what is right and for what is America. You sit on education and workforce. Tell us what's happening on the college campuses, but not only that, on education K through 12. There's been a lot going on with that also.
Well, we're working on it. We need more school choice and we need to deal more strongly with anti-Semitism. It's why I want to pass at the federal level the bill that I passed in Florida in 2019 that ended the anti-Semitism problem on our college campuses, to define anti-Semitism and then to say it simply has to be treated the same way as racism. You do those two things and you end the problem, which we did in Florida. So I'm focused on this at all levels, making sure our college campuses and our universities are focused on educating our kids, not indoctrinating them, and not making them safe havens for Muslim terror.
But yet here in New York, Mamdani's one of his first things that he did on day one was eliminate the IRA definition, which was very helpful in defining anti-Semitism.
Well,
So
Mamdani is a Muslim terrorist, so what do you expect? And shows us the problem with legal immigration. See, they succeeded in New York. They brought in millions of people who hate America. They got them to vote, whether legally or illegally, and they voted for a Muslim terrorist. We cannot afford more Mamdamis in this country, or we will Mamdami America, and that's not going to work.
no, that's it's absolutely horrific that New York, which has the largest Jewish population outside of Israel, now has a mayor that's vocally anti-Semitic and obviously so.
Yep.
Very, very frightening. But with regard to the college campuses, in terms of the money that's being, brought in by Qatar and how much they've invested in it, is that something that's being looked at also?
Yeah, absolutely. We're researching all of those things.
And what can be done at this point?
We can limit foreign funding. We can limit foreign students. I've got a lot of ideas that I'm working on to try to deal with this problem.
What was that bill that you introduced in Florida that that you were talking about?
Oh gosh, I did it in 2019. We passed it. It was the first piece of legislation in the history of Florida signed outside of the state. We signed it in Israel actually in 2019. And it did two simple things. It adopted the IRA definition and it said anti-Semitism as defined by IRA would be treated on our college campuses no better, no worse than racism is.
Unbelievable. So we all saw that unbelievable sight of you wearing that blue kippah in the hearings. Tell us why you chose to do that. And by the way, did you always wear a kippah before that? And
No, a great question. So I've not did not wear a kippah until May the 6th of this year. I had my first hearing in the Education Committee on anti-Semitism, where we brought in three university presidents who were not good at fighting anti-Semitism. And that morning, my 17-year-old Jacob said, "Dad, I think you should wear a yarmulke today." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because I have friends in college who don't feel safe wearing theirs. So you call yourself the Hebrew Hammer, wear a yarmulke, bring your hammer, and show them why." We did. You've pointed out, people have seen the video. And at the end of the day, the feedback was so great. He said you should keep wearing it until all Jews feel safe on college campuses. And that's why I do what I do.
and you are not, just for, clarification, you are not Orthodox. You do not wear this for that reason.
No, no, but I'm getting more Orthodox. So, I realize when you wear a kippah, you probably got to keep kosher. So I'm doing that now. And now I'm growing a beard. So maybe by the time I'm done with all of this, I'll be a rabbi.
Okay, that's something to look forward to for us. Wow, totally unbelievable. Um, as you move forward, what do you see the most important things that you're working on, that could happen actually in the next very soon?
Well, very soon is just to make sure President Trump's agenda is put forward, supported 100%. That's really where my focus will be.
And do you see the Greenland issue coming to a fruition
I hope
soon?
so. I hope so. I mean, look, he's pretty clear with what he wants.
And how, like operationally, how does that happen? He needs to have the support of the Senate and the Congress in order to make that happen. Or
No, he
um,
cuts a deal with Greenland, and I'm hopeful that he'll get that done.
if he cuts the deal, does that happen, or does the Senate and the Congress have to approve it?
It depends on what the deal is, but we'll see what happens there.
Wow. Well, lots to look forward to in that regard. That would be quite remarkable. They've always said that if Puerto Rico became the 51st state, that would be very problematic for the Republicans. So if Greenland were the 51st state, how would that play in?
We'll see what happens. Right now, the focus is getting Greenland so we can protect the United States.
And that seems like a really good goal. Well, we are so fortunate to have you actually where you are, standing up loudly, proudly, and unabashedly for all of these Western values and for our country that we love. I shudder to think, if people like you weren't there, what our country would look like and what we would be leaving for our children and grandchildren.
Well, I'm happy to do it, and I really do appreciate you having me today to talk about these things.
So, and we appreciate having you here. We appreciate hearing with clarity what was going on in Greenland, Minnesota, Iran, Venezuela. Having you connect those dots was really important to us. Um, the moment definitely demands moral clarity and courage to speak plainly. And that's why we are so lucky to have you and have leaders who are willing to stand up, push back, call things what they are. Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman Fine, for your willingness to speak out and lead at a critical time like this. And we so appreciate your clarity, your courage, your commitment to defending America and its allies when silence just isn't an option.
You're welcome. Thank you, Trudy. Thanks for having me.
To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. This has been Nothing But the Truth with Trudy Stern. You can catch us every Thursday at 9:30 p.m. on the radio. And if you missed any part of this show or want to listen to any of our past episodes, you can find us where you get your podcasts. Until next time, stay strong, stay informed, and keep seeking nothing but the truth.